But let's not horse around because Rocky Long is on the line, and we are excited about that overtime victory. Coach, just how you drew it up, right?
Well, I tell you what, since you know how this works, win is a win, and you're happy anytime you win, but it was a lot harder than people thought it was going to be. Now, going into the game, we thought it was going to be like that, but I think some other people had the wrong impression about what kind of team that was coming in here. But we're happy with the win.
I know a win's a win, but an overtime victory, Coach, tell the people, it is so sweet to have that walk-off victory. It feels so good, at least in my opinion it does. And yours, any difference in the celebration post-game in the locker room?
Well, there's some relief as well as excitement when you win a game like that because you think you've played well enough to win, but the other team keeps hanging in there, and all of a sudden it goes to overtime, and then you make a big play on defense. That's sweet. When you know you have a great field goal kicker, all you got to do is put it in the middle, and he's going to win the game for you. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting at the end.
Rocky, when you say other people didn't understand how difficult it would be for that win, do you mean your young players or do you mean fans that don't think that Eastern Michigan was going to show up and play tough?
I think it's both. I think the fans expect a certain level of play, and they don't know anything about the MAC or the Eastern Michigans of the world and don't know what kind of kids those are. And then I think we got some young players on our team that assume that if we can beat a ranked team, a top 25 ranked team, that anybody that's not ranked, it'll be easy. And I think that's a maturing process, but I've seen veteran teams react like that too. So it's all about education and them believing what we're telling them.
Coach, you mentioned you got a great field goal kicker, put it in the middle of the field at the end of the game, and he's going to put it through, and he did in overtime, had one at the end of the game to tie it, but he also missed a 36-yard field goal in the third quarter. How do you handle that when you know you've got a great kicker that misses a field goal? Do you talk to him on the sideline, or do you just let him be?
Well, I have a theory. If they've proven that they're good players and something goes wrong to them, you don't talk to them because they feel as bad or worse than you do. So when you know you've got a good player and things don't go quite right for him, you leave him alone and let him do his thing, and that's what we did with John.
What if you don't quite trust him?
Well, then you try to beef him up and try to give him a positive outlook and all that kind of stuff to tell him it's going to be okay. So it's a big-time mental game that you play, and you don't always win them.
Rocky Long with us on Extra 1360. Rocky, I got to tell you, because I interviewed 4 of your players after the game, 3 consecutive home games. I've been doing it for this 3 winning streak. You have just some really, really good dudes on your team. Darren Hall, he was bouncing off the walls. I felt younger talking to him. John was honest with me. He said his heart rate is different when he takes the field for an overtime one to kick it as opposed to the first quarter. A lot of times players won't admit to it. In overtime, tell us about the interception, really the one that sealed it, especially with the way the college football rules go in OT.
Well, we had a young corner out there in Darren Hall, and he played the play exactly right. We were playing a 2-deep coverage where they can isolate a corner with a guy underneath him and a guy over the top of him, and you want to give up the one underneath because it's not going to score, and you want to protect the one that goes in the end zone. And you got to trick a quarterback every once in a while to think the guy's open and then run back in there and make the play. And he played it exactly right. He had a guy in front of him. He kind of jumped him and made it look like he was going to give up the corner route and then ran back into the corner route, and the ball was thrown just a little bit underthrown, so he made a great play on it and gave us a chance to win.
Rocky, he was kind of drinking in the love and adulation after making that play, running towards the crowd. What did you make of that?
Well, I think celebration's part of the game, and I think that people that make rules against celebration, they don't understand or they never played before, because when you play a game like the one we just played, there's so much intensity and so much stress out there. That's just a release and a celebration of a job well done. I think they ought to let players celebrate.
It's just fun to watch. That's what you go to the game for, is to be a part of a good party. You don't want the party to be killed off. All right, Coach, 3-1, head into the bye week. Really good time. You're dealing with a bunch of injuries. Juwan Washington, 12 for 61, but he finished up the game watching from the sidelines. Got the turf toe, but he was also on the sidelines wearing a sling. Can we get an update on his progress or where he's at with his health?
They're not sure exactly what's wrong with him. There's something in the upper chest that, I don't know the body very well, but it's the scapula. I don't know how that works. Underneath the scapula, there's some ribs, I guess, and they think he bruised a rib. Now, they don't know exactly what this extent of the injury is right now, and they're going to give him an MRI today, and we'll have a better understanding. But he couldn't play. He was hurting. And then we lost Isaac Lassard, our fullback, with the neck injury. They'll find out what's wrong with him today. So the injuries are piling up, and then we have some veteran players standing on the sidelines. Hope we'll get one or two of them back for the game.
Rocky, the bye week has to fall to what it feels like a really good time. You don't want anybody to be hurt, but if it's going to happen, if it's going to pile up when you're heading into Boise State, do you like these 2 weeks?
Well, I mean, you never know if they're going to come at the right time, but with our injury situation, it came at the exact right time, and then we get the bye week before we enter conference play, and our goal is always to win the conference championship, and we're such a young team, it's going to be difficult to do, but we got to get our veteran and our good players back from injury, and if we don't, we have a harder time to win.
Speaking of veteran good players, how's Christian Chapman coming along in his rehab process?
Well, when I see him every day, and he still has a brace on his knee, but he looks really, really good, and he's moving around good. I think Noble Hall's progressing like they think he would, and I think they think Noble's going to be able to play against Boise. I'm not sure about Christian. They think he's still a few weeks away.
How did you feel Jasmine did running the ball as much as he had the last couple games in for Juwan?
Well, I thought he did okay. I don't think he ran the ball as well as he did the week before, and I think that's probably being a young, he's looking for the big play instead of just getting the yardage that is there. I mean, there was a couple times he bounced it outside that he made some good runs, but there's a couple times he bounced it outside where he should have kept it up in there, and I think that's experience. And Coach Horton's an awful good running back coach. I'm sure that Chase is going to figure that out and find that out this week.
Coach, on the defensive side of the ball, there was a lot of pressure early in the game when their quarterback Wiegers was in, but it proved to be really effective, kind of getting to him, got him out of the game. Then the backup comes in, Mike Glass. How much strategically did you have to change up for the different style of quarterback?
Well, it's funny, you want to put pressure on those quarterbacks and you want to make it hard on them, but then they put a completely different type of quarterback in the game. So we played the starter really well, and then we put the other guy in that's a little better athlete, can get out of trouble, do some things with his feet. And even though we got pressure on him, he was able to maintain control of the ball and completed some good plays. But the pressure eventually got to him. Even in overtime, he was under pressure when he threw that ball, and that's probably why he threw the interception. So no matter what kind of quarterbacks are out there, you got to get pressure on them. But it made it really hard on us when they switched quarterbacks.
Rocky, if you could look at your season almost from a bird's eye view at 3-1, 4 games in, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think going into the season, if I thought we were going to be 3-1 at this time, I would have been really, really happy. But, as coaches, you're never happy. I didn't think we played as well as we could have against Sac State. I don't think we played as well as we could against Eastern Michigan. But going into the season, I knew it was going to be this kind of season because we had so many young players. We got young coaches. We got young players. And you're going to have some growing pains. Now, I wish they'd stop growing and start acting like a veteran group because they're driving me crazy.
Coach Parker Houston looked like he was turning into a bit of a veteran, got going with the touchdown on that boot action by Ryan Agnew. Should we expect to see him more as a pass threat?
I think so. Parker's one of our veteran players now. He played a whole lot of football last year and played well for us, and he's playing well this year. And those tight ends and he's a good blocker. Those tight ends that block well, sometimes those DBs kind of forget to watch them, and they delay and bootleg and all those things, and they end up wide open. And he can catch the ball, so I'm sure he'll be a threat.
Rocky, we'll let you go. Although the pass by Ryan Agnew, they called him out of bounds when he was still in bounds. Does that drive you wild on the sideline? You don't seem to really lose it, though.
Well, I try that on purpose. You don't know what's going on inside. I mean, I don't want to lose it on the sidelines because that shows some instability. It shows your team that you're nervous, or you're worried, all that sort of thing. I'd just as soon our team stuck to the business at hand and just take whatever goes right and whatever goes wrong with a grain of salt and go about the next play. So as a coach, I feel you got to act that way too. Now, I was going crazy inside, I'll promise you.
Rocky Long, as always, thank you for the time. Congratulations on the victory over Eastern Michigan. I know you got a lot of work to do, even though it's the bye week. We look forward to catching up with you next Monday.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.